Most of the globe is under a capitalist system.
No, it's not. It's a cartelist system. It's the most illiberal mentality you'll ever come across in your life. You know, it's fascism more than liberalism.
So I'm Rob Moore, host of the Disruptive Entrepreneur Show. David Icke is probably one of the world's most renowned conspiracy theorists. Exposure of governmental truths. Also, renegade social commentator. He went down some very controversial rabbit holes. We asked him about the financial system, who runs the world, capitalism. Actually, David calls it cartelism. So some major revelations coming in this interview. But first, make sure you like this video, turn the notification bell on and subscribe to the channel. Most of the globe is under a capitalist system.
No, it's not. It's a cartelist system.
Okay, so definitely would love to come to that. The system that we know of, that we think we're under, capitalism, is that the problem, or is the problem how the system is being used? And then could you talk about this cartelist system? That would be interesting.
Yeah, well, no, this is the point. You know, this gets kind of frustrating when you observe the terms that are used. For instance, the woke mentality is called liberal. Oh, I'm sorry, it's the way I tell them. It's the most illiberal mentality you'll ever come across in your life. You know, it's fascism more than liberalism. But then you hear this anti-capitalism, down with capitalism. Well, it would be nice if we had it. What we have is cartelism. If you take an example like Facebook, take Amazon, take many of these companies. They are cult companies. They were created with cult money, which was limitless. And so what happens is they are built up to become monopolies. And in their developmental period, they are allowed to lose loads of money. Look at Amazon, for goodness sake, loads of money year after year, phenomenal amounts of money, because they're building a monopoly. And so you then reach the point where you have your near monopoly and you start to make vast amounts of money. And at that point, you can start dictating the odds. You know, this is why suddenly, after we had a free internet, now YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Google, etc., are involved in the most extreme hysterical censorship, which is simply digital book burning that the Nazis engaged in. And what you're doing is you have these companies being built up with CIA money in terms of Facebook, etc. And they are competing against other companies. You could call them genuinely capitalist companies that have entrepreneurs that are using their creativity. But those other companies they're competing with do have to watch the bottom line. They can't go on losing money year on year on year. And so they're under a tremendous disadvantage to these cult companies that have a limitless cash flow until they don't need it anymore because they dominate the market. And then what happens, and we've seen this with Facebook and so many others, is when other companies come along, they just buy them up. When the competition comes along, they buy them up and they take them over. And they basically have no competition in the end, worth the name. And that's cartelism. When you see groups within the same financial area, be they oil companies, be they social media companies, be they banks, whatever, moving as one unit to control the market. That's not capitalism. That's communism. That's centralization of control. And when you have your other cult created organizations like PayPal and these other groups in the financial area, who then say to people who are competing against cult companies like Facebook or social media, when independent social media entrepreneurial people, proper capitalist people, if you like, start to build up non-censored social media platforms and non-censored video platforms, what happens is these cartel companies like PayPal and other payment companies come in and say, no, we're not going to work with you anymore. So you can't go on operating, because you can't operate without us, because we control this market, this payment market. So you've had it. And then you have the example with Parler, the social media company that came up. Because what they say, you see, this is the con. They say, oh, well, no, Facebook and Twitter, they should have the right to censor what they like, because they're private companies. If you want to have no censorship, then start your own. And then you do start your own. And these cartel companies then come in and say, we're going to shut you down. So Amazon just shut Parler down. Because Amazon, people think, oh, Amazon's about ordering goods and they arrive in the post. But no, Amazon have a fantastic breadth of control of what they call the cloud, and the whole computer server operation. It's massive, and therefore they can shut you down. And so what we've seen is more and more power in these various expressions of the economy being handed to fewer and fewer people, so they can not only dictate what goes on, they can stop any other genuinely capitalist competition from actually competing with them. And what if we look at lockdown? This is a vital area. What I've been saying and writing now for decades is the plan for what I call the Hunger Games Society. And the Hunger Games Society, I called it something else before, but after the Hunger Games movie trilogy came along, I called it the Hunger Games Society, because those movies portrayed what this Hunger Games Society I'm talking about plans to be, which is a tiny few people dictating to everyone else via control of finance and via dependency by the population on the few for the very basics of survival. And I've been writing again for a very, very long time that the plan is and has been to destroy independent income and independent business and force the population to live on what I said was going to be called a guaranteed income, which would be a pittance, and you'd only get it if you do what the government wants you to do. Now, that sounded fantastic, when I first started talking about it. But this is why lockdown has been instigated, not to protect health, load of nonsense, but to destroy independent business, independent employment, and independent livelihood. Who has benefited from lockdown? Amazon, Facebook, all these major corporations have phenomenally increased their wealth and market share, while genuine entrepreneurs in the small businesses and the medium businesses and even the bigger businesses that are not cult owned have been sitting in their homes under lockdown. And what they did in this period, it's just ended, we're going to see now the consequences, is when they started locking people down in Britain in the spring of 2020, they knew that this lockdown was going to go on and on and on, but they also knew that if they didn't provide some income for those that were told their work was not essential and therefore couldn't be done, then they were going to get massive pushback right from the start, because people were not going to be able to pay their bills and buy food for their families. So they introduced furlough. And furlough was simply, I said it at the time, buying silence and buying time for more and more businesses to be destroyed, more and more employment to be destroyed, independent employment, independent businesses. And eventually I said, what they're going to do is they're going to pull the furlough payment, and then you're going to see the consequences, and you're going to see actually what's gone on. And I compared it to a similar situation with Margaret Thatcher and the miners. What Margaret Thatcher did was pay the miners bonus money to produce as much coal as they possibly could. It didn't have to be coal that was needed, just produce as much coal as you can. And the coal stocks got higher and higher and higher because far more was being produced than was being used. And then what did she do? She started closing the pit. And the miners, she knew, and those controlling her knew, would go on strike. But the lights were not going to go out as they did on the Ted Eve, because the stocks were so high. And they went a year, and the stocks still held out, and they had to march back with their heads bowed, and the mining industry was over. This is how this is what the furlough's been about. And what we know is a very simple thing. Know the outcome, and you'll see the journey. If you know where it's meant to go, you'll see the stepping stones to it every day. If you don't, everything seems random. So if you know the journey is to destroy independent business and independent employment with those businesses, then you know that lockdown's coming back, because they haven't completed the destruction of it yet. And you look at suddenly this crisis in terms of fuel shortages, and yes, because of that, food shortages and other reasons, and all these things that are happening now, they are continuing the impact of lockdown, even though we're not in it, because people are desperately trying to run their businesses and get the work done, but under the problem of distribution and fuel. And I know this from my own books that get sent around the world. The container shipping industry, which business, of course, depends upon, is in bloody chaos. And what is happening? Because of it, the prices are going through the roof. The prices of fuel is going up. The price of energy is going up. This is the big squeeze to push people into the lower echelons of the Hunger Games society, so they become dependent on the state, the basics of survival. And dependency equals control. All these things, all these dots connect if you know where we're being taken.
So let me know in the comments, what did you like? What didn't you like? What do you agree with? What do you not agree with? I would love your thoughts in the comments right now. We have a full, deep interview, the uncut, unedited version. So if you want to watch that, the link is below. So make sure you like the video, turn on the notification bell, and subscribe to the Disruptive Entrepreneur channel. And remember this, if you don't risk anything, you risk everything.